Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today I'll share with you some incidents that were narrated to me by a shaykh who had reached the age of about 92 when I met him. And he told me about one of the shuyukh that he had spent a fair amount of time with. He had seen him and studied with him and got to observe many of the amazing things about this person. The name of that shaykh was Allama Anwar Shah Kashmiri, rahimahullah. Now he was a great muhaddith and gifted with an amazing memory. We don't find in recent times people with that type of knowledge and memorizing capacity especially. So this shaykh that tells me about him mentioned that Allama Anwar Shah had this nur about him that it pulled everyone's attention to him. When he was walking or he was sitting somewhere, you could not keep your eyes off of him. In fact, I have been fortunate enough to study in one of the institutes that Anwar Shah Kashmiri taught at. And a lot of the relics from his time were still there. The room that he used to live in was exactly the way it was when he used to live there, even when I went. So outside of the school, there's a village that's just up the street. So when Anwar Shah used to go out after Asr to go to the village to get something, people used to line up along the sides of the road to see him. And the Hindus of that time, especially, would gather and look at him, and they would say that if there is someone that we feel is a true Muslim, it's this person here who's walking in front of us. In fact, when he died, the Hindus of that area used to say that there was one real Muslim amongst you and now he's gone. So he had that kind of personality. He had a lot of nur, a lot of radiance on his face. When he studied, the books at that time used to be such that you had the main text of the book and then you had these margins. Marginalia, it's called Hashia. So at that time, the notes that were written in the margins were not written straight. They were written at different angles. And they would be surrounding the page. So what students normally do is you take the book and then when the writing is slanted, you turn the book so that you can see it. But Anwar Shah would never do that. He would leave the book on the desk and he himself would move around the desk. And his reason for doing that is that this is the book. The book is like my teacher. Why should I have my book revolving, rotating around for me? I should move around for the book. And it is the honor, the adab of the book that I should not be moving it and maneuvering it like this. He thought it was disrespectful to the book. So these shuyukh had very high adab, very small, minute etiquettes that they used to hold on to, and they used to feel that this is a source of khair and barakah in their knowledge. There is one book of fiqh called Nurul Idah. It's a very famous book, and it was written a long time ago. But there were no copies of this book available in India. When Anwar Shah Kashmiri visited Egypt and Al-Azhar, and he visited the library there, he saw this book that he had read so much about, but he had never actually seen a printed copy of it. So he went through this book. He sat down and he actually read the whole book from beginning to end. When he traveled, when he got back to India, he reproduced that entire book from his memory. He wrote the whole book out from beginning to end. Once when he was sitting in his place of hadith, one of the great shuyukh, Shaykh al-Hind he was called, Shaykh Mahmud al-Hasan, he came with an entourage of scholars. Now Shaykh Mahmud al-Hasan was the teacher of Anwar Shah, but he came with this entourage of scholars, and when Anwar Shah sees his ustad, his shaykh coming in, he's a little bit nervous and he doesn't know what to do. But his ustad pacifies him and says, look, today we've come to you not just to visit you for a visit, but there's a very serious and pressing matter, and we don't think there's anyone that can solve it if you can't. So what has happened is somebody wrote this article. There's a group of people that wrote this article, and they published this article in a newspaper. And through that article, they were trying to prove that Hind, India of that time, was a Darul Harb. It is a place of war, and therefore it is permissible for Muslims to loot the wealth of all of the non-Muslims in India. And they can pillage and kill and rob. It was a very strange kind of an article. The references for the article were in Arabic. They were from books. And the issue that these ulama had was that we know all of this is false, but we don't know where these books are. Because these books have not been in print, they're not available in India to the best of our knowledge. But we know these people have changed the words that are in those books. They've changed those texts. But how do we prove it? So, Anwar Shah Sahib sat and thought for a little while. He said, no, the books do exist in India. And I'll tell you, this text, this quote that they've taken, it reads like this, but in the original book, this is what the wording is. And this quote, it's written here like this, but in the original book it's written like this. And he went through all the quotes and he corrected them from his memory, and they said, hey, that's amazing, but how do we prove it? He said, no, I know where the book is. He said, okay. And he said, well, where did you come across it? Because we haven't seen it. He said, oh, about some 21 years ago, 22 years ago, I was going through such and such town, and I discovered that they had an old, small library of manuscripts. And I happened to go there. It was in a house. And as I went through it, I came across this book, and I skimmed through it. And the text was imprinted in my mind. And even now, if that library is still there, you'll find the book. So he told them where to go, and what room of the library, what shelf, and what bookshelf. And this many books to the left side, you'll find this book. On such and such page, you'll open it, and you'll find all of these references. And so they went to that town, to that library, to that shelf, to that actual shelf, and that many books from the left side, they found the book on that page. They found the text exactly as Anwar Shah had quoted it. And there are dozens of stories about him like this, that the Shaykh who spoke to me is witness of many of them. I don't have time to go through all of them. It would be a rather long session. But isn't it amazing how people like this existed even in recent times? So it was not something restricted to the time of Imam Bukhari, or to the time, like I was talking about Imam Sha'bi yesterday. This is not something that's restricted to a certain time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give it. ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ الْعَظِيمِ. That is the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He can give it to whoever He wants. Question is, how badly do we want it? And what are we doing to get it? Sometimes we hear these talks about etiquettes and akhlaq and adab and so on and so forth, and it sounds just like, it sounds very monotonous and repetitive, like a broken record. But if you were to probe a little bit deeper, you would find that it is within these etiquettes that you will find the nur of knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instills in the heart of the seeker of knowledge. It is through those etiquettes that you will get that nur, and you will get that understanding, and you will get that barakah in your knowledge, that blessing in your knowledge. Many of you are reading tafsir, you're reading hadith, you're reading fiqh, you're reading aqidah, you're studying all of these sacred sciences. But it doesn't become sacred until you approach it with the right etiquette. And when you approach it with that etiquette, with that sense of reverence, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will A, give you the true understanding of it, and B, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the tawfiq to bring your life according to what you're studying. And C, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use you to spread that knowledge around the world. And if the etiquette is not observed and the reverence is not upheld, then A, the correct understanding is not achieved, and B, practice is not achieved, and C, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't use these people or such people to take that knowledge and spread it to other people. So these are some things. Sometimes I feel like sitting down and just talking about these great personalities, because I can go on for hours. But the idea is to extract lessons, critical lessons that we need today, right now, that we can implement, and so we can start becoming like them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.